Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today, inshallah, I'm going to be talking about some verses from Surah An-Nisah, which means the women. And as the title suggests, there are a lot of issues related to women, especially in the beginning part of the surah. Things which were in the days of Jahiliyyah prevalent, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took those things and basically forbade them. This is what the beginning verses of Surah An-Nisa talk about. So firstly, the first thing I want to talk about is, in the beginning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَآتُوا النِّسَاءَ صَدُقَاتِهِنَّ نِحْلَةً فَإِن طِبْلَ لَكُمْ عَنْ شَيْءٍ مِّنْهُ نَفْسًا فَكُلُوهُ هَنِيئًا مَرِيئًا. The issue of the mahar, or the dowry or the gift that a person gives, which is also known in Arabic as sadaq or mahar, this is something that the people are not familiar with in terms of what the rules and regulations are when it comes to the mahar. First and foremost, this is the right of the bride, meaning the one that is getting married. It is her right. It is not her parents' right. It is not anybody else's right. It is her right. It is not a bride price that is being paid for her, that she's being bought. This is a gift for her as a token of appreciation for becoming the wife of that person who's going to give her that gift. So that gift should be such that it is valuable and it shows appreciation for the woman that he is getting married to, and it should not be, very little, to such a degree that it belittles the value of the woman in such a way that there's no value to the thing that is being given, unless and until the woman herself, she demands a lower mahar. And this is something that the Prophet ﷺ said, that the best of the women are the ones who demand the least mahar. So there's a balance there to put between the two, not to have it too big that it becomes so difficult, as is the case in the Middle East nowadays. If you go to the Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia, Dubai, and the other Gulf states, it's become very difficult for a man to get married because of the high price of the mahar that is being demanded from people. And it should not be so little that it becomes demeaning and belittling to the woman who's about to get married. Also, at the same time, we need to understand that it's not just a verbal agreement, or it's just something you put down in the marriage contract and it's never implemented. If you commit to giving a mahar, that is a responsibility upon your shoulders. You have to give that mahar upon demand. In many cultures, the mu'akhar mahar is usually only given at the time of divorce. The reality is that it's paid upon demand. Whenever the woman demands it, that has to be paid. And it's so strict, the ruling of the mahar is so strict, that when the person, if the husband passes away and he has not given her the mahar yet, the first thing that is distributed from the inheritance as a debt, it's a debt upon his head, is the mahar. It is given to his wife before the rest of the inheritance is distributed. So this shows all the important facts and rules related to the mahar, but yet it's something that we neglect so much nowadays. Okay, so if there's a commitment being made, it has to be fulfilled and it has to be given unless and until she herself forgives the balance of the mahar, which she shouldn't be forced to do. Nobody needs to twist his wife's arm and tell her that you need to forgive the balance of the mahar. It is something, if she gives herself, if she gives it up herself, that is fine. Once it's been given, then to take it back also, it's not permissible. Okay, this is again forbidden in the Quran, even if a divorce takes place. وَإِنْ أَرَدْتُمُ اسْتِبْدَالَ زَوْجٍ مَكَانَ زَوْجٍ وَآتَيْتُمْ إِحْدَاهُنَّ قِنْطَارًا فَلَا تَأْخُذُوا مِنْهُ شَيْئًا أَتَأْخُذُونَهُ بُهْتَانًا وَإِثْمًا مُبِينًا. That once you have consummated the marriage and then you basically divorce, I'm giving you just paraphrasing, not doing the exact translation. If a divorce takes place, then you're not allowed to take back that mahar that you have given her. It's not permissible for you to do that. So these are the rules and regulations related to mahar, about which many people are ignorant. So in the beginning of Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَآتُ النِّسَاءِ صَدُقَاتِهِنَّ نِحْلًا. Give the women their mahar, their sadaq, in the state of cheerfulness. Do it happily, not glumly, and not as if you've, it's a bitter pill that you're swallowing that you don't want to give. This is a sign of love for her. It's a sign of appreciation for her. Make sure you give it as soon as possible. But then after that it says, فَإِن طِبْنَ لَكُمْ مِنْهُ شَيْئًا نَفْسًا فَكُلُوهُ هَنِيئًا مَرِيئًا. If they themselves give some back to you or forgive any of it to you, then you're allowed to consume it yourself without any kind of problem. After this also some rules and regulations about the yatama, the orphans are mentioned, and this is something again that was very, very prevalent in those days. The issue of taking care of orphans, many people used to consume the wealth of the orphans that they used to get in inheritance. So many rules are mentioned about this issue of consuming the wealth of the orphans. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَمَنْ كَانَ غَنِيًّا فَلْيَسْتَعْفِفْ وَمَنْ كَانَ فَقِيرًا فَلْيَأْكُلْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. If a person is rich and he has taken up the case of an orphan and he's taken him in and he's looking after him, then he should try to avoid to take any of the wealth that orphan received in inheritance, and he should use his own wealth to take care of that orphan. But in the case of a person being faqir, he himself doesn't have money to feed his own family, and to take another orphan in, to take another person in, it's going to be difficult for him. So then the needs of that orphan can be fulfilled by taking from the inheritance of the orphan and utilizing it on behalf of the orphan, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. وَمَنْ كَانَ فَقِيرًا فَلْيَأْكُلْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. But in any case, the problem with the orphans was that because they were small, they couldn't stand up for their rights. And again, this is something even prevalent in this day and age. The worst treated children are the ones that don't have anybody to speak for them. They go from foster home to foster home. They're molested and abused, and so many victims of so many problems because they have no adult that can take care of them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically talks about orphans and mentions their rights in these particular verses. One of the things that used to take place in the days of Jahiliyyah was that women used to be inherited. So if somebody passes away, his wife becomes the inheritance of the immediate family. So the brothers of the person who died, they have the first right to actually get married to that woman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, this is not permissible. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la yahillu lakum an tarithu an-nisaa karha. It is not permissible for you to inherit the women forcefully. So yes, if you come to a mutual agreement and she agrees to marry one of the brothers, there's nothing wrong with that if she is agreeing to it. But in those days, it was forced upon her and she had to stay in the family. And the reason that they had was so that they could keep the children within the family and they couldn't be neglected. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that it is not permissible. Another thing that is mentioned in these verses is the issue of inheritance. Now, one of the things that the critics of Islam point at Islam is the issue of inheritance being unfair for the women. And they point to a portion of the verse in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنْثَيَيْنِ, that for the male is a double share that of the female. Okay, so if we step back a little bit and we actually look at the books of tafsir and we find out why the verses of inheritance were actually revealed, we'll be shocked to find that the verses of inheritance were actually revealed for two girls. The wife of Sa'd ibn Rabi', she came to the Prophet ﷺ and complained, and she said, Ya Rasulullah, Sa'd ibn Rabi', he was killed in one of the battles and he left an inheritance, but his brother came and took everything. Okay, so I have two girls and they've ended up with nothing, and the brother took everything. So what should I do? The Prophet ﷺ said, wait for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send a decision. So the verses of inheritance were actually revealed specifically for these two girls, and again the ruling is maintained up until this point that whenever two girls are left an inheritance, they get 2/3 of everything. Okay, فَلَهُنَّ ثُلُثَ مَا تَرَكْ. They will get 2/3 of everything. Okay, and this concept of the woman getting half, this is only in the case of the siblings. Okay, otherwise the issue is, for example, there are situations where the women actually gets exactly the same as the male. Okay, so in the case of somebody passing away and both parents being alive at the same time, both of them actually get 1/6 equally. Okay, but in other cases, in the cases where there is the issue of the woman getting half of the male, there's a reason behind it. And the reason is that Sharia is not something that you cherry pick and you just use when you need it or when you require it. This is not what Sharia is about. Sharia is a holistic way of life. It's a complete way of life that we need to understand, looking at the complete picture. And when we look at the complete picture, we'll find that the woman is the responsibility of her immediate relatives. She's the responsibility of her husband, the responsibility of her father, the responsibility of her brother, and whoever she's living with at the time, she is the responsibility of the male members of her family. So whenever she gets any type of inheritance, she gets everything. She gets all that inheritance. She can take it, she can invest it, she can buy jewelry with it, she can do whatever she likes with it, because she doesn't have any responsibility to utilize it on any other family member. However, the male members of the family, when they get the inheritance, they take that inheritance and they have to utilize it on their own family, on their kids, and then this sister also. Okay, so say for example, a person passed away and he left 2 children, one male, one female, and he left, say for example, $75,000. So the male gets 50,000 and the female, she gets 25,000, half of what the male gets. But the female, she gets 25,000, she keeps it all for herself. She doesn't have to spend it on anybody. However, the male, he has maybe a wife, he has 5 kids, so that 50,000 is now distributed amongst 6-7 people already. Okay, including the sister who will also get a share of it in terms of indirect spending upon her. Okay, so we need to understand this from a Sharia perspective, that Sharia basically is a holistic way of life that we need to implement in its entirety, then we'll understand this ruling. So the reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنْثَيَيْنِ is because of this ruling. After this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about something that used to take place in the days of Jahiliyyah, which was that if a person, for example, he had a father and that father had multiple wives, it was permissible, or it was even recommended in those days, that the person, if the father passes away, then he marries the stepmother, his own stepmother, not his, obviously his own mother, but the stepmother, one of the wives of his father. It was actually something that was prevalent in those times. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came down and said this is not correct. وَلَا تَنْكِحُوا مَا نَكَحَ آبَاؤُكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ إِلَّا مَا قَدْ سَلَفَ إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشَةً وَسَاءَ سَبِيلًا. You're not allowed to marry those women that your fathers have already married. This is a fahisha, this is something immoral, and it's a very bad way to adopt. So again, a habit of Jahiliyyah was being practiced. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stamped it out. Now in this day and age, we have issues related to equality between male and female, and people make an issue about many things. Okay, I read a very ridiculous article from a feminist who says about herself that she's not going to have children for the rest of her life. Why should she have to bear the burden of having children when males don't have to do it? I mean, this is the most ridiculous thing that you and I ever heard, but this is again the Jahiliyyah and the ignorance that these people come up with to justify their position of trying to justify that they are getting unfair treatment, even in the case of something so natural as childbirth. So in any case, some women came to the Prophet ﷺ and told him, Ya Rasulullah, How is it that the men, they get to fight on the battlefield, and they get to do so many things, and they get the opportunity to get the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So we need to understand that when we are born male or when we are born female, it is not because of choice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us male, He created us female, and each one of us, we have different roles and responsibilities, and we have different ways of getting the ajr from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so for example, men, if they say that I want to have a baby, it's not going to happen. Okay, only the women, they have the honor of being mothers and having the honor of having children and being the ones that bear the children and carry the children and get the reward for having the child. Okay, so this is not something that is without reward. There's a huge difficulty involved in the child, in having the child. There's a huge difficulty in raising the child, in weaning the child, in feeding the child, in cleaning the child. But because of that difficulty, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognizes the woman's status. In the Quran, again and again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about how the woman goes through so many difficulties when giving birth to the child and raising the child. So because of that, she is respected. The Prophet ﷺ was asked, who is more worthy of my respect, Ya Rasulullah? 3 times the Prophet ﷺ said, your mother, your mother, your mother. The 4th time, he said, your father. So this shows the status that the woman has been given. So these difficulties that the women have to endure, like the childbirth, the monthly cycle, these are not without reward. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards them for it because they are displaying patience for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made them endure and the difficulties they have to endure. Okay, so many women, for example, they complain. They say, I had to miss my 7 days of fasting during the month of Ramadan. I wish I was a man. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you the same reward while you are eating and drinking throughout the day. Okay, because of your intention. Many women again complain about having to miss their salats over the week. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give you the reward for free without having you make any effort if your intention is there. So women should not complain about these things. So in any case, when these women came to the Prophet ﷺ and complained and said, Ya Rasulullah, why is it that the men can go onto the battlefield and we don't? They get this opportunity to get this whole reward. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed verses and says, وَلَا تَتَمَنَّوْا مَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بِهِ بَعْضَكُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ لِلرِّجَالِ نَصِيبٌ مِمَّا اكْتَسَبُوا وَلِلنِّسَاءِ نَصِيبٌ مِمَّا اكْتَسَبْنَ وَاسْأَلُوا اللَّهَ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمًا. Do not wish for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given of a status to each other. Okay? Men should not wish for what women get, and women should not wish for what men have got. Each one has got their own status, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognizes each one separately. لِلرِّجَالِ نَصِيبٌ مِمَّا اكْتَسَبُوا. The men get what they have earned. وَلِلنِّسَاءِ نَصِيبٌ مِمَّا اكْتَسَبْنَ. And the women get a share of what they earned. وَاسْأَلُوا اللَّهَ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from His bounty. Okay, don't complain. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His reward directly. So this is again something that in this day and age, particularly when there's this huge noise about equality and so on, we need to keep in mind that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given different roles and responsibilities to men and women, and we should accept them as they are. I think we, inshallah, I'll stop there, and inshallah we'll continue tomorrow. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us tawfiq to understand and practice what has been said and heard.